Okay guys, today we keep experimenting with meat marination, and as you probably know, I've already made a video on this topic before where I was curious about the marination time and its benefits and effects on the meat. If you haven't seen that video yet, make sure to check it out. You can find the link in the description down below. It was quite fun and I was shocked by the results, but it also got some comments about the marinade and the method itself. In today's video I'm back and I try to introduce you some more variables in the marinade as you saw it on the thumbnail, so let's roll! To keep this experiment as accurate as possible related to the last one, I chose the same cut of meat, the pork loin. I'm gonna cut it into slices and make the marinade, but first of all I need to trim it, because you can see there's a big silver skin running through the whole piece of meat. What I like to do is easy. I cut one slice from the loin almost through, but I leave the last few millimeters there, then I just need to slide my knife under the meat and above the silver skin, and it can be easily removed like that. I do the same thing with the bigger piece of loin as well. It is just like removing the skin from a fish. Just make sure your knife is sharp and of course use caution. After I removed all the nasty parts and silver skin, I start to cut it into thumb-sized thick slices. And what I like to do is to punch the slices a few times with the skillet to make its surface area a little more larger, just like this. I use 2 cloves of garlic for 3 pieces of meat, crush and chop them roughly. After that it's time to season it. In my last marination video I skipped to add any salt to the meat because it tends to draw out moisture from the meat, and I seasoned the pieces with salt just before cooking. That was my thought then, but today I put the salt on the meat before the marinade, and we're gonna find out together if that was a good idea, a bad idea, or just a variable that doesn't really matter. I also like to season the pieces with some freshly ground black pepper, a little sprinkle of thyme and the same amount of rosemary. And yeah, I literally push the chopped garlic bits into the meat as well. I try to distribute the seasoning evenly to be precise. And here comes the marination part. I'm gonna do 3 different kinds of marinade bases. The first one is gonna be a simple oil-based marinade just like it was in my last video. My idea that this is going to be a really good control piece regarding the salt usage in the marinade comparing to my previous video. The second one is going to be a mix of some oil and acid. And the acid is gonna be this thing over here, which is basically just some freshly squeezed lemon juice. Just a teaspoon of it. The theory that the acid helps to break down proteins and fibers in the meat, but let's see later. I also like to dilute it with a little bit of water in order to let the meat sink in the marinade and also to lower the acidity of the marinade. Let's jump to the third one, which is gonna be whole fat milk. My idea that the milk has some acidity and has some fattiness as well, so it might be the perfect marinade, who knows? After you're done with that, let me introduce you the variables of today's video. I want to concentrate on the tenderness and juiciness of the final product, but the flavor is also really important as we are talking about meat marinating. As I experimented in my last video, 24 hours is a perfect time for marinades like this, so I let them rest in the refrigerator for 1 day. Now all there is left to do is to put the lid on and say goodbye. After 24 hours I opened them, and for first sight there is no sign of any changes after all, so I put them in a paper towel to remove all the excess moisture from its surface. But please, never wash or rinse your marinated meat, just wipe the excess marinade off. I know, the marinade should penetrate the meat by this time, but washing the marinade off is just like cut the crust of a beautiful ribeye steak and eat only the inner part. Sounds gross, isn't it? Just don't do that. Okay, I start to put the meat on a towel, and guys, look at that. Now I see the difference. Look at the second one, the acid marinated one. It looks like it's already cooked, man. That looks really sad, I tell you. I'm not looking forward to taste that. But I will anyway. Before cooking them, I want to remove all the garlic bits and the excess marinade from all sides of the meat, and after that it looks like this. And it's ready for the skillet. I want to use as high heat as I possibly can to make a nice crust on the meat. Then pour about a teaspoon of vegetable oil in the skillet and start to cook the meat. As it was marinated and not that thick, 1.5 to 2 minutes per side is just fine. Just don't forget to flip it. It's perfect when you hear that. When the time is up and it's beautiful golden brown like this on each side, I turn off the gas, put them on the side and let them sit for a few minutes. Alright everybody, here we have all 3 pieces of these beautiful marinated pork chops and it's time to taste those. This is the oil marinated, This one in the middle is the lemon juicy, and this one I marinated in the milk for 24 hours. Let's start with the first one. The cross section is white as I expect from a piece of pork, but when I turn it, it looks like it has some color. But guys, this is just the juices of the meat as I cutted it. You can see it has released some of its moisture to the cutting board. That is not really a good sign for me, you know, because it's supposed to be in the meat, not on my cutting board. But anyway, let's see its consistency. Yeah, it's a little bit tough for feeling when I touch it, but I like to taste it as well. Okay, let me tell you something. This one is a thin slice of pork and it releases those juices as you can see, and it's not really that tender. This one is quite interesting for me, cause last time I made it exactly the same way except the addition time of the salt. So yeah, it's a little bit dry and not as tender as it was in my last video, and I blame it on the salt obviously, cause that's the only variable. Anyway, the flavor is good, I can taste the garlic and the herbs, it's not porky, not too salty, it's nice. But let's jump to the second one after I wiped off my cutleries. And wow man, again, it really is the serious amount of juices again, you can see. The cross section is nice and white and it feels like much tender already than the oil marinated one. But I like to taste it, of course. And here's what I think. It is a little bit more soft and tender than the previous one. It definitely has a better texture and a smooth consistency. But guys, the taste is a no-go for me. Maybe I should have washed this piece under running water to remove the sour components of the marinade, because it is really pungent. I can feel some garlic and spices, but the sour, lemony character is overwhelming everything. It might be good for chicken or fish, but for a piece of pork like this, it is way too much. And as I said before, I don't really want to wash the marinades from the meat. But let's see the third one. Again, guys, this one really is far the most juicy and I'm afraid a little bit. It's supposed to be in the meat, come on. I think it all happened because of the salt. But let's see the slice I cut it. Yeah, it's quite tender, it feels like the most tender and soft, and as I taste it, I think the same. This piece is the most tender of all. And what surprises me is that this one is also the most juicy and moist, despite the fact that it released a lot of juices on the cutting board. The herb taste is muted, but the garlic is much more pronounced as well in this piece. I found no extra milky taste in the meat, it's really just a good marinade. Okay guys, we are talking about pork, so the differences between these are slightly blurred. But I tell you one thing, the milk marinated piece is way better than the other two. I don't know the chemistry behind this, maybe it's because of the natural lactic acid and fat content of the milk that works great when marinating meats like this. Anyway guys, these are the results and I hope I could give you an enjoyable experiment today. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one in the comments. Take care.